A drop in brightness is not proof of imminent death. It is precisely when the light turns uncertain, when the sky seems to lose a fixed point, that the physics beneath the surface is preparing its most violent act. Betelgeuse, the red shoulder of Orion, is not dying in the way intuition tells us. It is changing masks. And here, every mask can look like an omen. The common idea is simple, almost irresistible. A huge star swells, cools, dims. If it is old, if it is a red supergiant, then the fading must be the final warning bell. It feels plausible because we see only the luminous skin, the photosphere, and we treat it like a cardiac monitor. But on Betelgeuse that skin is a convective ocean. It boils, fractures, throws off matter. And the light that reaches our eyes can be altered not by the collapse of the core, but by something more ordinary, and at the same time more unsettling. Newly formed dust, plasma hurled outward, geometries shifting on colossal scales. When, between 2019 and early 2020, the star plunged toward one of the most dramatic minima in decades, it felt as though we were witnessing the antechamber of a supernova. For weeks the human eye could tell that Betelgeuse was no longer itself. And for a precise reason. A star already among the most conspicuous in the winter sky was suddenly less dominant, as if someone had lowered a cosmic dimmer switch. The most disturbing part came later, with the explanations. It was not the core giving way. It was the outer shell doing what red supergiants do spectacularly: shedding mass. A vast ejection of hot material, likely tied to the rise of a giant convective cell, cooled in the outer layers and enabled dust to form. Dust capable of screening the light. The star had not gone out. It had drawn a veil across the world's eyes. And yet this is where the tension that makes Betelgeuse so magnetic begins. If the great dimming was largely a matter of dust and geometry, then what are we to make of the variations that followed? Why, after that minimum, did the star display fresh irregularities, phases brighter than usual and then new declines? The instinctive answer, once again, is that it is nearing the end. But the truth is subtler. Betelgeuse is not a steady light bulb. It breathes. And its breathing has more than one rhythm. For decades observers have identified two main timescales in its variability. A shorter one, around 400 days, often interpreted as a pulsation of the envelope. And a longer one, roughly 2100 days. Nearly 6 years. Marking a slow wave of change. The temptation is to treat both as beats of the same heart. But what if one of those rhythms does not belong to the star alone? What if, in the light curve, there is the signature of a second body that appears and disappears, that stirs dust, that carves corridors of transparency and then closes them again? In recent years this possibility has shifted from science fiction toward concrete astrophysics. The idea is sharp-edged. A close companion star in orbit could modulate part of the long-period variations, not because it brightens Betelgeuse, but because it interacts with the surrounding environment. At certain orbital phases it might disturb the extended atmosphere, redistribute material, even sweep dust from the line of sight. At others it could encourage clumping and shadowing. It is a mechanism that changes perspective. The brightness we measure is not only what the star emits, but also what its own environment allows to pass. At that point the question changes its face. It is no longer simply, when will Betelgeuse explode? It becomes, what, exactly, is happening around it while we stand there, obsessed with the supernova, reading every fluctuation as a countdown? A companion near a red supergiant is not a decorative detail. It is a perturbation. It means tides, interactions with an immense atmosphere, currents and condensations. It means dust that is not only expelled, but stirred and reshaped. And it means that our reading of the light can be misled by a choreography for two, in which the primary star is an unstable beacon and the other, smaller and more discrete, is a finger that from time to time passes in front of the lens. As if that were not enough, beneath this theater of dust and orbits lies the true drama, the core. The end of a massive star depends not on what we see at the surface, but on what burns deep within, under conditions that compress matter into something close to an experiment in extreme physics. When hydrogen in the core runs out, the star rearranges itself. When helium is exhausted, it changes again. And as the fuel grows heavier, time accelerates. The final stages do not last millions of years like the beginning. They grow shorter and shorter. If you can determine which burning phase the core is in, you turn a vague question into an interval. It is not a calendar. It is an internal clock, and we are trying to read it through shadows, dust, and a possible companion that keeps crossing the stage. That is why every new light show on Betelgeuse does not close the story. It complicates it. It might be a breath. It might be a veil. It might be an orbit. Or it might be the background noise of something changing in the core while we, hundreds of light years away, receive only photons and force them into a verdict. In the case of Betelgeuse, the word surface is almost a convenient fiction. A red supergiant has an atmosphere so extended and dynamic that the boundary between star and space around the star becomes a region rather than a line. It is a zone filled with clumps, slow winds, arcs of gas, dust that is born and dies. Add an orbiting companion, and that boundary becomes a turbulent laboratory, tides pulling, densities shifting, flows channeled. The light that reaches us is the result of a sum. What is emitted, what is absorbed, what is scattered, and what is rendered irregular by immense convective structures. This is why the popular image that it will shine like the moon must be handled with care. A relatively nearby supernova would indeed be one of the most spectacular naked eye events imaginable. It could dominate the sky for weeks, transform a familiar region of constellations into something almost unrecognizable. But the exact apparent brightness depends on the nature of the explosion, the energy released, the amount of dust along the line of sight, and how the outer layers are hurled into space. It is a powerful way to convey the emotional scale of the event, not a reliable hourglass. The deepest part of the story is that, as a massive star approaches collapse, time becomes counterintuitive. Hydrogen fusion can last millions of years. Helium much less. The subsequent stages, tied to ever heavier elements, shrink drastically. In some scenarios the burning of carbon, neon, oxygen, and silicon can unfold on timescales that, for astronomy, are almost flashes. But we do not have a sensor in the core. We have pulsations, spectra, velocity maps of the atmosphere, measurements across different bands, and above all models, simulations that attempt to link observable behavior to an evolutionary stage. Here lies the most fascinating controversy. If you interpret the pulsation periods differently, you change the estimate of the radius, the mass, even the evolutionary stage. Some studies have suggested that Betelgeuse may be further along than expected, in a phase compatible with carbon burning or with transitions that would bring it closer to collapse more quickly than the most conservative estimates imply. That does not mean it will explode tomorrow. It means the interval could be on the order of centuries rather than tens or hundreds of thousands of years. It is an enormous psychological leap, even while remaining scientifically cautious. And above all, it is the kind of proposal that forces others to check, criticize, rebuild, because the astrophysics of red supergiants is a mosaic. Shift one tile and the image changes. Meanwhile, the possible companion adds a narrative layer that is almost mischievous. If a smaller object orbits close to Betelgeuse, it can leave a periodic imprint in the light curve. It can pass through dense regions of gas and dust and create a wake, a density trail that alters what we see when it aligns with our line of sight. It is like realizing you were not observing only a lighthouse in the fog, but also a boat that, passing in front, stirs the fog itself. In this scenario, some anomalies are not symptoms of the core. They are side effects of the environment and orbital dynamics. Then there is another channel of information, less intuitive than visible light but often more revealing: high-energy emission. Observing in ultraviolet or X-rays does not measure the average temperature of the photosphere. It probes hot regions, shocks, interactions, events that reveal how gas is heated and accelerated. These are precious clues for distinguishing simple, stellar weather from more structured phenomena, such as wakes, colliding flows, or compression zones. In other words, even when visible light seems like a broken sentence, other bands may suggest the grammar. And here is the paradox Betelgeuse forces us to accept. The more data we gather, the more we discover that there is no single definitive signal. We want a straight line, because the human brain loves a simple equation: dimming equals end. But Betelgeuse compels us to think in layers. First layer: pulsations of roughly 400 days, a breath that alters temperature and radius and thus luminosity. Second layer: mass loss events, eruptions and dust formation that can obscure a vast fraction of the light without the core collapsing. Third layer: a roughly 6-year cycle that could be tied to a companion, capable of modulating dust and gas and imprinting a periodic signature. Fourth layer: the slow but inexorable evolution of the core, which may be more or less advanced depending on the star's true parameters. Each layer, taken alone, seems to explain everything. Together, they explain why any absolute prediction is fragile. So what remains, once you strip away the illusion of a calendar? A fact with almost vertiginous force. Betelgeuse may already have exploded and we would not yet know, because light takes centuries to arrive. This is not a rhetorical trick. It is the most concrete reminder that we are observing the past. And precisely because we are observing the past, every improvement in measurement is like increasing the resolution of a film already shot. We do not change the event. We change our ability to understand where we are in the story. If tomorrow Betelgeuse were to dim again, the first reasonable hypothesis would still be dust, a veil born of expelled material that cools and condenses. But today we would immediately add other questions. Is the long cycle entering a new phase? Is the geometry of the dust responding to the companion's passage? Is there a wake reshaping the atmosphere? Do the spectral lines change as they do when gas is compressed or accelerated? And through all of this, like an almost imperceptible basso continuo, the nuclear clock keeps consuming its final fuels until fusion can no longer support the structure against gravity. When that moment comes, it will not be announced by a single symbol. It will be a core collapse, a rebound, a shock wave racing through the outer layers and ejecting them into space. The star that today behaves like a luminous, restless animal will become a scar in the sky, an expanding remnant that will endure for millennia. And we, meanwhile, will continue to do what we do best and worst: look at a distant light and turn it into a story. The difference now is that the story has more characters, more mechanisms, and more interpretive traps than we once imagined. And for Betelgeuse, paradoxically, this is the most credible sign of its greatness. It grants us no countdown. It forces us to understand how a stellar ending truly works, as it unfolds slowly, noisily, and partly hidden behind its own dust. If you have made it this far, it means you love curiosity as much as we do. If you enjoyed this journey, leave a like, write a comment, and subscribe to the channel. It is the best way to support what we do. Your presence truly makes a difference. Until the next exploration.